Ashwin Sanghi is in Chennai for the launch of his latest book, Chanakya'S Chant. His first book, The Rosable Line, is absolutely riveting. It talks about how Jesus Christ could have been inspired by Buddhism and how he survived the crucifixion and actually travelled to India and left behind a bloodline. A very controversial topic. You self-published the book before you met people from Westland. So I think it's important to talk about your relationship with Westland.
Well, Westland is home for me. My first book, The Rosable Line, could not find a publisher for almost about a year, in spite of almost about 100 manuscripts having gone out.
Was it just the nature of the topic?
I think it was the nature of the topic, and in any case the struggle that any first-time author faces, because the publishing industry is notorious for trying to completely sort of ignore anything that is remotely new. But as it turned out, my published book, the self-published book, was noticed by Westland, and they then took the initiative of calling me and saying, well, we'd like to come up with an India-specific edition, and that happened in November 2008. That's the point of time when I told Mr. Gautam Padmanabhan of Westland, I said, well, now for me this is home, so whatever I turn out, good or bad, is yours.
They're very, very happy about the book. They should be. They have every reason to be. And we had a lovely book launch in Chennai with Mrs. Basanti, who's a journalist and a political analyst and author herself. Releasing the book. What do you think of the Chennai audience?
This is the second time that I've had a launch function. The first was with the Rosable Line, and I was here in 2009 for that, and now of course with Chanakya'S Chant. But the one thing is that in Chennai, everyone is still fond of reading, which is so refreshing. I think to a certain, in fact, I would be, I find that with Chennai audiences, they've already read the book by the time that they come and meet you. Questions are creative. You're not asked, how do you write? Do you write on a typewriter, or do you write with pen and paper? Which is typically the sort of questions that you face in most cities.
But I'll tell you what, it is an interesting question, because I asked Jeffrey Archer that recently, and he still writes by hand.
Yeah.
It's a dying art, believe me.
Absolutely. I belong to the techno generation, so without my Mac, I'm completely lost.
Ashwin, people bemoan the fact that the reading habit is on the decline. So I'm wondering whether commercial fiction and thrillers and books in that genre is really the remedy to the problem, as long as it gets people to read. And since you're on top of the bestseller list now, what do you say?
Well, I would say that probably any reading is good reading. I personally find that for a very long time, Indian authors were encouraged to write only literary fiction or award-winning fiction, stuff that could win the Booker Prize. But honestly speaking, if you wanted your daily dose of chills or thrills, you had to look for Western authors, which is a shame really, because why is it that we as Indian authors can't turn out juicy whodunits or mysteries or suspense or thrillers? It's very much possible, and in fact increasingly our generation is looking for stories which are rooted with an Indian voice. Why do you need to read a spy thriller that's set in the Soviet Union? You'd rather read an Indo-Pak spy thriller.
So is it really the plot for you as a writer and not so much the style? I mean, the style too, but what, know what I mean.
Plot. There are people who say, well, character, I could not pick up the multi-dimensional nature of the character. I felt that the nuances were not there. Well, if you're looking for that, then don't read my books. At the end of the day, I spend a lot of time in terms of plotting the book. And the way I look at it is that if the plot is good, the story will propel itself and the characters will develop themselves.
You're doing a PhD in creative writing. So does that program give you room to put forward this point of view?
As a part of my PhD process, which I'm hoping that it will get completed in the next couple of years, I have to be my harshest critic. which is very difficult because you have to look at your own work. and probably in case by then I've written a third novel, probably I'll look at that also. And you have to sort of figure out that what were the things that you would have done differently, or what are the things that other authors may have done differently, or what are the things that you did right. So it's a process of introspection and sort of thinking in terms of well, the context in which you've written that particular work, trying to establish it on a continuum of time, that how is that particular continuum affected your style of writing.
But there's nothing like an ideal novel which must have an ideal mix or a balance of everything: plot, character development, a style. Is there something like that? You know,
either you can tell a good story or you can't. Honestly speaking, I mean, I wouldn't like to be remembered as a writer. I don't want to be remembered as an author. I want to be remembered as a bloody good storyteller. If I can be remembered as that, then I'll be the happiest person.
a bestseller, that's what he means. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure.
Ashwin Sanghi, author of The Rosible Line and Chanakya'S Chant. I've read both books and I urge you to read both. They're absolutely riveting. Thanks for joining us.